Again is Alex Offer, formerly from Blizzard, now at Microsoft. I'm your host, Kevin.
And I'm Brian.
You're now tuned in to Coder Conversations. Welcome back, Alex. It's been a second.
Yeah. Thanks for having me back on.
Yeah, it's been a minute. Glad to have you back on tonight.
Yeah, it's a pleasure, man. Lots changed since we last spoke.
Yeah, definitely. Understatement.
Do you want to kind of just dive into where we left off, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, it's been a crazy year. It's basically been about 12 months exactly. Essentially, last time I talked to y'all, it was the day I got laid off from Blizzard Entertainment.
Yeah.
I was, in the job search for a period of time. And back in July is when I finally got an offer to actually come back to Microsoft as a recruiter. I'm actually assigned as a sourcer. Full disclosure, I'm on as a contractor. So, I got to make that disclosure known. But otherwise, I work, for Microsoft as a recruiter.
Okay, very cool. Are you working with like the Xbox team, the game division, or are you just in general?
Yeah, so, I primarily focus on an area called go-to-market, which is a sales teams. And the types of roles I primarily fill are cloud solution architects and solution engineers, specifically within the security and infrastructure and AI space. So these are basically the technical folks that are on the sales teams, going to different clients, explaining why, hey, y'all should use Azure, you should use our security solutions. The solution engineers, they're the ones who are, much more, experienced, much more technical. The architects are the ones who have a little bit broader view of systems and how everything works together. But essentially, yeah, they're all parts of the sales and the go-to-market teams.
Very cool.
Okay, so yeah, I know you were unemployed for a while, man. That must have been really tough surviving,
Yeah, I wouldn't choose to do it again, but if it happens, I have all that experience to draw on.
Just roll with it. Yeah.
Yeah, I faced layoff, being laid off for about 4 months, and I know it's definitely not easy, especially if you don't have a nest egg built up. So, like, how were you able to kind of survive through that tough time? Because I know a lot of people are going through layoffs now.
Yeah, it's almost a rite of passage. I feel like, especially anybody in the tech industry, it's almost like, you're not a real person if you haven't been laid off. Like, you got to have that on your resume at least once. It's like the grand equalizer. But yeah, I mean, it was definitely tough. I mean, when I was employed, I mean, the tech industry, I mean, jobs pay pretty well. So I generally made a very strong effort to live below my means when I was working. I lived in places like Austin, Texas. Now I'm in Tucson, Arizona, where the cost of living is quite a bit, lower than some other places, San Francisco, New York. So I was able to kind of use the difference between a California salary and a Arizona cost of living to sock away a decent amount of money. And then, you kind of save it for a rainy day, and then you get unemployed, and
that's the rainy day.
Yeah. So really, I mean, it sounds so simple, but it really is just, when times are good, put money aside, and when times are bad, you draw on the money that you need.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
No, that's a huge lesson because, I know, like, when people, a lot of times they get these big salaries, they think it's always going to be like that. Like, layoffs don't come, but especially in tech,
Right.
you never know.
Well, that's definitely something that, it's tough. When it comes to the salaries and the money, there's such a social element to this. Like, people, earlier in your career, you're in your early to mid 20s, everyone starts getting a pretty big paycheck, and then you see everybody shows up in the parking lot with a BMW or an Acura, and I'm driving my crappy old Scion, and it's
Scion,
like,
yeah.
There's a few of us, the girl with the old Nissan, there's me with my old Scion, and it's like, who wants to go to lunch in my tiny little hatchback? But then at the same time, you get into situations where then when there's a layoff, people are, no matter how much money you make, whatever your salary is, people are living paycheck to paycheck at all levels, and then things feel dire, things feel extreme, and like, oh my God, if I don't make this exact amount of money, I am toast. My family is toast. Whereas, in my case, I was already living quite a bit below my means. And then, I'm comfortable cutting expenses. I mean, I relocated to a different apartment. Some of the choices I made, obviously,
Do
like,
you have any kids?
I have one son. Yeah, I
You
have
have
a
one son.
2-year-old.
Okay. Awesome.
Yeah. So, even things like that. I mean, I think there's, not to get like too personal or anything, but there's such like a ego associated with this. Like, you want to have, memberships to all the museums, so you can go take them to all the different experiences and tickets to this event and that kind of stuff. But in reality, I think the best thing you could do for a child is just spending quality time, and they don't necessarily know the difference between, you pay for a ticket to go to an event, or you're spending time in the park, in the playground. And something we like to do is, I moved into this neighborhood. It's on an old orange grove, so there's all these old citrus trees, and he has this like fake plastic truck, and we go for drives around the neighborhood, and he picks up these oranges, and I'll cut it open, and he could see what's on the inside, and there's coyotes, we could see the animals.
That's exciting.
To a child, just spending quality time with dad is just as good as going to something. If I cook dinner, I'm teaching him how to cook. We're making tacos together, and then he's picking up a taco, asking for a taco bite. That's just as good as taking him out to a Mexican restaurant.
Yeah, I mean, it makes me think back to when I was in my early teenage years. My dad worked for himself, so he'd come home tired. He'd be on the phone for another hour setting up, work for the next day or the next week, and then I'd be like, "Well, let's play catch." And like he'd be like, "Oh, I'm tired," or finally he would do it. He would agree to it, but kind of in a lackluster way. So I'd be like, "All right, forget it." But yeah, it's tough, to find the time. Not every parent can find the time, so that's great that you are.
Yeah, I think when a lot of times we look at all of the fancy stuff, that's our, like you mentioned, it's kind of an ego thing. It's like, oh, I want to take him to this museum. It's something that we do for ourselves, but as a kid, they don't really care about that. They just want to spend time with dad.
Right. And I mean, Brian, to your point, so when I grew up, my parents had a business too, and it was always a family thing. And they had a couple different businesses, so kind of changed year by year. But I mean, a lot of my early memories are going to my dad's office or helping my mom with the equipment. And when I was younger, working in the business, or we're all watching a movie as a family, and my parents have some stuff out on the coffee table, they're working on something, and it was always like, it was a whole family affair. And so maybe I kind of take that approach where if I have to do the dishes, how can we make it fun for a 2-year-old? I've got to cook dinner. How can I bring my son into that? Or maybe, hey, he's going to go watch videos of monster trucks on the TV in the other room. Just how can we make
okay
it fun?
too.
It doesn't have to be like a chore in a bad way. We can make fun of it.
Yeah, like you said, it doesn't have to be a museum, doesn't have to be anything lofty or whatever. That's pretty cool, man.
And I think what makes these layoffs different than some of the layoffs in the past. Before, in tech, you get laid off, you find a job in 2 weeks to a month. But now you get laid off, you're just sitting on the sidelines for like 6 months.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I think one of the silver linings to that is, let's say in the before days, in 2023 and earlier, there was really a negative connotation for people with a gap of employment on their resume. If you had 3 months of unemployment, it's like, what's wrong with you, dude?
What's wrong with you?
That doesn't mean there's anything wrong with you, but there's this assumption that there's something up. But this is like the grand equalizer, where the people who thought that, they got laid off, and then they were unemployed for 6 months. So everybody got a reality check.
They realized.
Humbled in that way. So I've kind of noticed that there's a lot less, if there's a gap of employment, especially if it's between 2023 and 2025, it's almost for people's first assumption, well, they probably got laid off and it's a tough job market. So it probably took them a little while to get back on the horse.
Right.
And I guess one of the good things is it does give you time to possibly explore some of the side projects you've always wanted to explore. Like you can be productive during that time.
Oh yeah, no, definitely. I mean, I kind of talked about this a little bit, last time I was on the podcast. I was training to run this ultra marathon, a 250-mile ultra marathon, and lo and behold, hey, guess who's got all this extra time, on his hands?
Yeah.
I think I could have done it if I was working, but since I wasn't working, I had so much more flexibility. And, a lot of the training was going out in the middle of the day in June, July in Tucson when it's 112 degrees,
Oh, wow.
going out for a 15-mile run. And I could time it to be the most brutal time of the day. I don't have to squeeze it in around, 5 to 9 or whatever time I'm available.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, if you want to get into your running, I mean, that's an amazing accomplishment, the ultra marathon.
Yeah. I mean, I could talk for like 12 hours about that. So yeah, I mean, essentially I've been running for about 10 years, and basically about 10 years ago, I got out of a career I wasn't that crazy about. And I was out of shape. I was not living the healthiest life. And I was kind of in a similar situation to now where I was like, I got time on my hands. I got to keep myself busy. I got to do it for free.
Do something.
What can I do? So I just started walking around the block, wearing my sneakers. That turned into running. That turned into a mile, 2 miles, 3 miles. One thing that's actually kind of crazy is I started listening to this podcast. It was called 10 Junk Miles. And that really normalized long distance running for me, like regular people with regular careers. Maybe there's people who were, former addicts or had terrible childhood, people with crazy backstories, are running these 50, 100-mile races. And actually in July, I got to appear on that show. So 10 years of listening to this podcast, I actually got to, record an episode with that podcast. So, definitely, this time off of work, I mean, I didn't just sit around on the couch playing
Doesn't sound like it. Yeah.
I'm like, hey, this is an opportunity. What can I do with this?
That's a great perspective.
Yeah, that's amazing that you did manage to stay productive, and not only being productive, just accomplish a major milestone in your life. I know doing something like that really has to almost give you the confidence that you can almost do anything.
Yeah, I mean, and there's definitely a lot of, overlaps. I mean, we could play the game of, chicken and the egg. Being, enduring these difficult situations lead to, mental strength, or does mental strength allow you to endure these situations? And, I don't want to put myself on a high horse or anything. I know there's other people that have had insane things happen that, I could never understand. I can't compare to what they've experienced, but this has been an extremely rough year, extremely rough year for me. And even, something like this race I could say there were periods of that race that were the most physically painful things I've ever experienced, the most mentally, degrading things I've ever experienced. Just to put it in a nutshell, it was essentially, the race is called Cocodona 250. It goes from basically Phoenix to Flagstaff, Arizona. And I ran this in about 4.5 days. So when all is said and done, it was about 265 miles, which is about 10 consecutive marathons nonstop over 4.5 days. And it's on the trail. It's going up and down mountain ranges through the desert. It rained for like 3 days straight. So I only got about maybe 4 hours of sleep total throughout this whole thing. So you got to imagine it was like a serious trip. And like anybody who does this, you've got to be willing to endure like massive, like physical destruction. Like, there was some really rough, some really rough experiences. Definitely, like, it felt like a transcendental experience for sure. And I mean, I don't want to like, talk about that too much, because I'm happy to, but I don't want to dominate the entire conversation with just the running. But I worked so hard. I mean, the training leading up to this was very, very difficult. To do the training, I would go out into the mountains for like 3-4 days at a time and just basically exist in the wilderness and, go camping without a sleeping bag in 30-degree weather and just, flex that, just toughen up muscle, the sleep deprivation, just go like day after day with no sleep just to endure it. It was pretty brutal. But after that, when all is said and done, the period of unemployment and just this, this is kind of personal, but it's like scary when you see your money dipping down, your investments dipping down, you're interviewing, but you're not getting any offers, or you're applying and you're not even getting interviews. And it's like, you start calculating, okay, how many months, how many weeks do I have left before something needs to change? And it's like, it's scary. It's really scary. And there's nothing, you can influence the decision, but you can influence having a job, but you can't force anybody to hire you. So you can only grind so much. So a lot of it is just, how do I keep myself feeling positive? I don't have a job, don't have any prospects. How can I keep my head in the game, essentially? And I mean, so many times I came back to, if I could do that, if I could do Cocodona, I could do this. I could just live another week and just hope that something is going to happen. And, there's so many analogies between the race and real life. Like just for example, I had situations where, I experienced some really difficult physical complications, like not to be gross, but like blisters, like massive blisters on my feet, and I still have 50 more miles left in the race. What am I going to do? I can't like undo the blisters. Is there anything I could do to like fix this situation? And it's like kind of just out of the blue, your body gets used to it. You take a 15-minute power nap and you just eat a bunch, like 5 Tylenol, and there's time that things can just change, just like great things can just come out of the woodwork and benefit you, and things can work out in the end. And maybe you cross the finish line and you are like not in one piece, you are in terrible shape, but you could do it. And it's the same thing. I'm stressed out. I'm just like hoping that something happens. And, eventually, I mean, with the job I have now, I mean, that kind of just came out of the blue. It was kind of a crazy, odd coincidence.
So the race, did that feel like a spiritual experience through it or at the end of it?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, it was,
sounds pretty like fasting. It sounds pretty intense.
Yeah, it was like a transcendental experience. It was basically like a 3-day mushroom trip is the only way I could really put it. The sleep deprivation and the physical exertion just caused like massive hallucinations for days at a time. I wasn't on an actual mushroom trip during this race, but it it definitely was like having these like psychedelic hallucinations, these like your mind is just like on a roll. It has a mind of its own. I was having like weird visions, seeing things that weren't there. On one hand, it was kind of interesting. It's kind of like, hey, what's this weird stuff? I'm like seeing skeletons everywhere I look. But on the other
what's
hand,
this about, right?
Yeah, it was actually really challenging. Like, I'm supposed to follow a path up a mountain in the middle of the night, and I'm just like, I'm seeing houses that aren't there. I go to knock on the person's door and the house disappears. It was like the craziest thing I've ever experienced.
It seems almost like the cartoons, like where they see like a oasis in the desert, and
oh yeah. it was like being in Looney Tunes, especially like the Roadrunner and Coyote. I mean, that's like the desert down here. It really felt like that.
So yeah, I know, like once you accomplish that, I mean, that had to have relieved a lot of the stress of like finding a job. Because once you do something like that, you're on the verge of even dying. It feels like, how difficult is finding this job, like.
Yeah, well, I mean, I definitely had like some near death experiences during the training. That's kind of crazy, but actually I had like a close encounter with a mountain lion. I was about like 15 feet away from a mountain lion, coming down a mountain, in the middle of a night. It was like 11 o'clock at night. And basically in the distance, I had a headlamp on. I could see like some reflective things in the distance. And I thought it was like a campsite. I thought maybe, people have reflective tape on their backpack or something.
Yeah,
So
sure.
I go up to it, and this thing, it like looks at me, and it's like a mountain lion's face, and it's the two eyes, and it's about 15 feet away. And I just am like, I like text my parents and my best friend. I'm like, hey, nice knowing you guys. Have fun. And it looked at me and then just walked away. It was sitting on a log and it just walked away. Other stuff too. I almost like died of heat stroke. That was kind of an interesting thing. Thankfully,
I feel like, God opens certain doors or windows for us, when, like you're saying, you get totally exhausted. You have blisters on your feet, but somehow God allows you to proceed with the race and finish it. And that's really powerful. Right. That's really powerful stuff. Yeah,
definitely. And I mean, not to even get like weirder, but I felt like this mountain lion was like speaking to me, like, and that's kind of another weird story too. But yeah, I mean, with the job thing, I mean, it was crazy. I mean, and I think in 2025, the job market, is basically like end of 2024, first half of 2025, it was nonstop layoffs. Every big tech company just lay off constantly. Then towards the middle of the year, it was kind of no hire, no fire. I mean, there were still some layoffs going on, but it wasn't the massive, just nonstop layoffs of before. And now it kind of seems like there's actually a little bit of, some positive movement. This is just anecdotal. I'm not referencing any, government data or anything. It's just my personal opinion, especially in the talent acquisition space. It went from layoff, nothing. Now I'm seeing a lot of contract opportunities being posted, and contracting is way better than nothing, and nothing is way better than getting laid off.
Right.
Exactly. I think like the two themes I'm finding is just like persistence and faith. Like sometimes you just got to keep going, but you also learn that it's not necessarily you that's presenting the opportunity. Like you mentioned, it just came out of nowhere. So it's like,
right. Well, yeah, I can explain that too. That, and just another one of these things where it's like, whatever your religion is, whatever your background or belief system is, just like people get to a point where it's like, I'm basically up against a cliff, and it's going to have to take some miracle to save me, because there's nothing within my control that I can do to make, save myself, basically.
Make it any easier. Yeah.
Right. And I think a lot of people probably have felt that way. And essentially, I'm out for a run one day, and I just get a LinkedIn message from a recruiter basically saying, hey, we got an opening at Microsoft. You open to having a conversation? I say, yeah. Talk to them for maybe 15 minutes. A couple days later, they just email me and say, hey, we'll offer you the job.
Wow.
Wow.
It was like barely even an interview.
Wow.
So, I mean, I applied for so many jobs. In the first half of the year, I didn't interview a ton. I just didn't really get a lot of traction. In the second half of the year, I got quite a bit more traction. But really, it was this just, I mean, call it luck, call it a miracle, call it whatever you want. But one of these just random, kind of out of the woodwork events, somebody I've never spoken to before just reached out and said, essentially, hey, we want to bring you back on.
Wow.
Yeah, that had to have been a really relieving feeling, finally getting income coming back and, just getting back in the flow of things.
I mean, really, I honestly, I like signed the offer letter, and I like was like crying. I was just like, how is this happening? Like how, like for months and months of like, just grinding, just the nonstop rejection. And I know a lot of people can relate to that. Just like, just hoping and like praying that something is going to happen, that, I'm doing everything I can. I'm not getting the results I need. I just need something that's out of my control to go my way. And then it does. It's like, what can you do? But, just be thankful and take advantage of that opportunity.
It's almost like you let go, and then that allows the opportunity to be attracted to you. Would you say that's kind of what happened? you think?
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. I mean, and it was the kind of thing like a couple of years ago. I mean, and I'll admit, I have an ego about certain things. Job market's really strong. You could be a lot pickier. This is something that a couple of years ago, I probably would have just not taken that phone call. And then this time I'm out for a run. I see and to me, everything good happens when I'm out on a run. I see this LinkedIn message come through and I'm just like, you know what? I'm going to say yes to this. I'm just going to take this phone call and I'm going to open myself to something that, I'm asking for a sign. Maybe this is the sign. If I don't take this phone call, how am I going to know if it's the sign or not?
Right.
Yeah, like just being unemployed for a long time, it really, knocks the ego out of us because,
it's humbling.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Especially when the tech market was strong, you're like, I can just jump into a new job in 2 weeks, in 2 days. But when you're going months.
When I got cut, I don't think anybody really, predicted what was going to happen. Like end of 2024 up until middle. And I mean, I think we're still seeing some pretty big layoffs happening. I think, Amazon had some, 10,000 or plus.
I think it was 12,000 plus.
Yeah. I mean, I see that. That still, kind of makes me a little nervous when I see that. But, I think that it's almost like after COVID, there was like a massive pendulum swing where there was tons of people getting cut, then massive hiring.
Yeah.
Salaries were inflated. Now we're seeing it readjust. And I almost feel like, again, this is anecdotal, but where the job market is today is almost like where it would be if COVID never happened and we didn't have that massive spike and then drop. And it just, if things kind of went consistent, salaries normalized. I mean, salary pay rates are a little bit lower than what they were a year or two ago, but they're better than what they were in 2019. So, it is what it is, and it's something I have no control over. No, I don't think any person individually can control the job market one way or the other.
Yeah, with the job market being so perilous, did that make you start to kind of strategize what you do, like while you have a job? Like, okay, are you more active in building your brand, or just still networking?
Yeah. So, I kind of followed this strategy. I mean, and I make a lot of connections to the video game world. I worked in video games. I played a lot of video games, and I don't know if you guys ever played like any of the RPGs, whether it's Skyrim, Fallout, anything like that, Diablo. It's like you have this goal to beat the game. You can just go straight for the quest. Sometimes the quest is too hard. You have to farm better resources, or you have to build up your character doing side quests. I kind of make the same analogy to my life and with the job search, kind of put in the same framework. Normally, if you're trying to get a job, people say, don't think about video games, but no, we're in a new world here. So, I created almost this process that I created for myself to find a job. It was basically focus on 5 different things, and anything that's not one of these 5 things, just don't do it. Scrolling reels on Instagram, it's not part of it. So forget about it. Just don't do it. So essentially it was applying for jobs, networking, upskilling, personal brand, and side quest. So that's kind of how this looked for me. So applying for jobs, just, always be looking at the job boards, LinkedIn, Indeed, keeping your ear to the ground. If somebody has something, they tell you about it, apply to it. Pretty straightforward. Networking, that's going on LinkedIn, calling people up on the phone, reaching out to old coworkers, and I can talk more about my networking strategy, but, essentially it's just communicating with people in the professional network. Personal brand, that's what do you post? How do you establish yourself? And I think that's something people don't realize is everything you put out there is your personal brand. What you put on Instagram, a recruiter might see, and it goes back, what you write in a paper when you're in college, a recruiter might see that. It's crazy, but it's true. Right. So personal brand, upskilling is upskilling, it's studying for this, practicing for that. It's pretty straightforward. And then side quests, those are things that maybe on the surface don't seem like they're going to get you any closer to your goal. You know, like going and doing a fetch quest for this guy, that's not going to beat the mission, the main quest. But when you do that, you're going to get XP. You're going to get a new sword, new armor.
Yeah.
It's the same kind of thing. So in my approach, you know, so I applied a lot, networking, did that a lot, upskilling. You know, I actually started studying for the PHR certification. It's a HR certification. I didn't take the test, but that's upskilling, you know, just learning more about, you know, the industry that I'm in and learning new things. Then personal brand and side quest. I really consider the run that I did a side quest. On the surface, what does running overnight in the desert have to do with getting a job? But I mean, the mental toughness, you know, now I'm in a job that's pretty intense, that requires a lot of mental toughness. You know, how many times have I said, if I could do Cocodona, I could do this recruiting?
Yeah.
It's, you know, maybe in the past I would have said, I can't do this, I'm going to quit my job. But now I say, all right, I know I have it in me to do this. I just don't know how, but I know I do.
Yeah, I'll say this. So have you ever done a water fast?
No, I mean, out here in the desert, you know, doing a water fast is not a good idea, but I've done like a food fast. What is a water fast? Is it what it sounds like?
I did pure water, just all water for 1 week. And
okay.
On the 7th,
I thought you meant like don't drink water.
Oh, no. No, just drinking water. I did it for 7 days, and on the 7th day, I started to hallucinate. So then I ate something, and broke the fast. But from doing that, that really built me up, brought me up, and made me realize, okay, if I can not eat on purpose for 7 days in a row and feel great, I can do anything. You know, nothing else is gonna stack up to this water fast. Like when I think about my life, nothing else is anywhere near as hard as the water fast.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. You know, kind of on that note, so
because it makes me about, what like, you're saying, it kind of like memory jogs me. You know what you're saying.
Yeah. So there's a Jewish holiday called Yom Kippur, which that's a day of fast. And you know, I'm Jewish. I've done that every year. So I do drink water. I mean, if you're really, really strict, I don't drink water, but I do drink water. So yeah, once a year I'll do that, fast all day and just drink water. But yeah, you know, and then personal brand, you know, I mean, this is kind of a crazy thing too, is after appearing on your guys' shows, talking to you guys a little bit, I wanted to start my own podcast. I thought it would be fun. So I made a podcast, put out a couple episodes, and that was so much fun, you know, just learning the skills. I'm not going to say it's as, you know, I'm not going to say, you know, it's going to compete with you guys or take any of your listeners or anything, but this is like a fun personal project. I've been a podcast fan for 10 years. Like, why not just do it for fun? I mean, who cares if it sucks? You know, who cares if I get one listener? It's just do it for fun. So I did a podcast about training and running this race, and it's fun. You know, I really enjoy doing it. I haven't put out an episode in a couple months, but I kind of got that bug again. You know, I kind of got a little bit more free time now, so I might pick it back up. But you know, then when it comes to the personal branding, I go on LinkedIn and I get to be the ultra marathon guy. I'm the recruiter who can run, you know, 250 miles. That really makes you stand out. You know, I'm not just, you get all these recruiters who say, oh, I'm really good at technical recruiting. I'm really good at sourcing. I've placed 100 candidates, you know, and then you got, oh, this guy can run for 4.5 days straight and he's a recruiter. Like,
how about that?
It's personal branding. So everything kind of connected to everything else. And I do think it's very likely that, you know, I'm posting, I'm doing this run, then I'm making this podcast, and I'm posting on LinkedIn, you know, links to the podcast, talking about the running. And then that increases the, you know, the level of visibility on LinkedIn. So a recruiter that's hiring for a role is more likely to see my profile pop up when they're sourcing. So, you know, I think that you could say it's a miracle, but also I think you could say what I'm doing is actually generating the result that I'm looking for. So, yeah, I mean, that was kind of my approach: the application, networking, upskill, personal brand, side quest.
I think a lot of people, they underestimate what it's going to be like, and today, if you lose a job, just how hard that is to, re-engage into another position.
Mhm.
I don't know for you. I mean, how would you say that it affected you? Like while you were laid off,
Mhm.
how did that really affect your life while all this other stuff is going on?
Yeah, I mean, it was depressing. It was tough. And I
Yeah,
think too, people really connect their career to their identity in a very strong way. I mean, I used to think I was pretty disconnected, but I think going a couple months without having a job, my identity was sort of out to sea. I was like, who am I?
who am
And
I now?
right.
Yeah,
I mean, like, what is my life all about? And I think running this race almost gave me a new identity. It gave me that new conversation starter where you're out meeting people and someone says, "Oh, hey, Brian, what do you do?" Kevin, what? So nice to meet you. What do you do? And instead of saying, "Oh, I'm just unemployed and I'm in between things," which there's no shame in that, but being able to say, "Well, I got laid off, so I'm taking the time to focus on this huge goal that I'm working towards." It it kind of gave me an identity that I could really be proud of and really be excited about. But yeah, I mean, honestly, like it was really depressing. It was really
yeah.
tough. I consider myself a very joking around, laughing a lot. My kind of like subsided to a degree. I mean, I really focused just on getting through the day and like keeping my head positive. And you could have so many of these negative thoughts. I was going through a lot of things in my personal life as well that were like very, very difficult, just kind of by coincidence. And so, you could be, let's say naturally, normally, I'm super positive, I'm happy, joking around. When
Right.
things are going bad, you could just be like, wow, everything sucks, everything's terrible. So I sort of reset my goal to say, I can either be positive or neutral, but I can give myself are bad. I'm not going to fool myself. I'm going to be honest with myself. Things are really, really bad right now. These are the worst times I've ever had. But I have to be also honest with myself that they could get better. I still have the potential to have things go better. There's still the opportunity that something great could come out of the blue and improve things. So, yeah, I think just resetting my goal to, just be focused on either being positive or being neutral, but don't allow myself to fall into that just negative hole, which is, the harder
So
things
that'd
are, the harder
be
it
your
is
advice for, yeah, that'd be your advice. Just kind of don't sink into that depression. Maybe find a race or find a
right,
chess club or,
right. What
find
can you
anything
do?
that, yeah, like what else can you do besides your job search? Like who are you beyond the job? That's a question that maybe not a lot of people ask themselves until they've been laid off for 6 months. Like, okay, well, who am I now?
Yeah, no, definitely. And that's kind of like what, what this mountain lion was like telling me, and that's, now we're getting like really, really weird, but, the things you hear on the trail, it's crazy. But yeah, I mean, basically like what the mountain lion was like saying to me was like, I kind of had this conversation, where I was just like, everything I am is gone. Like just my identity as a, and also just to kind of be upfront, like I got divorced over the year,
Okay.
so like my identity as a husband, as a employee, as a tech worker, everything is gone. My whole life is like a disaster right now, and this mountain lion basically said like, you still like that's your old self, like you still have so much to put out there, like you got to think about the
Hmm.
positive things, like you are running, you're in the middle of like a 30-mile run in the middle of the night, like you're one of the
Yeah.
people on the face of the earth, like a lot of people like that. You're funny, at least I think I'm funny. You have a sense of humor, you're very kind, you're very generous, even when money is tight. You you share what you have. It's just, you don't have as much, you're a good father, you take care of your son, all of these things, like you make really hard choices, that, maybe other people would fail to make the hard choice. You make the hard choice, you make the sacrifice. And so I kind of had this conversation with a mountain lion, and I was like, yeah, that is a different identity. I'm just, what I knew in the past is different. Now I'm going to be something else instead. And I kind of like move forward with that, in a positive way. And that's how I conducted myself, making new friends, joining different groups, volunteering, going on different podcasts. I really built a lot of positive things from that point forward.
It sounds like that lion, gave you a good pep talk. Quick. Yeah. All right, son. Hold on.
A near-death experience will do that to you.
A near-death experience, and okay, first of all, who am I? What am I about? What do I want? Especially like you said, a divorce, that's heavy. So all this stuff swirling through your mind. You're unemployed. You're divorced. You're feeling like unworthy, just terrible. Because I've been there too. So it's it's very difficult. But I think that lion really, I think there's something there.
Yeah.
As crazy as that sounds. Yeah.
No, it's true. And you have to put yourself in the position where you are open to receiving that message. And if you are, some of the, the mentally difficult things can knock you off your feet. I mean, without a doubt, I don't want to, claim I didn't have my hard days or anything. There were times that were so difficult. I was completely shut down. I couldn't lift myself up off the floor. But if you take that too far, I mean, you have to force yourself to go through the motions of doing something positive, even if you don't want to, even if you're not feeling it. You have to force yourself just to do it, even if your heart's not into it, to put yourself in that position where something good can happen. And so, if you're just sitting on the couch all day doing nothing, let's say you get really bad news, you got to recover from that. But if you lean into it too hard, you're not opening yourself to receiving those positive things that could actually, make your life even better.
Yeah, and I think it's really amazing how much our minds play into this, because we attach our identity to all of these things, and once this gets stripped from you and you realize you're still here, you're still existing, then it really makes you reconsider, what do I really need in order to survive? And a lot of times it's a lot less than we think, and that's sort of like fasting in a different aspect. We attach so much importance to our career, but God shows us you're not your career. You're not even your spouse.
That's right.
And
yeah.
I mean, it's amazing. It's amazing that you're able to remain positive. But I think that's the main lesson there. Is it's a choice. You chose to chase after positivity versus just wallowing in pity and self-doubt.
Because it's so easy, right, Kev? It's so easy to just stay in that place, in that space where, woe is me, everything terrible. Oh, I see other people, they're getting hired. What's wrong with me? But, you talk to a spiritual lion and you might, get your head back on the right way, and opportunities could come to you like Microsoft. So it's incredible, man.
I almost think the lesson there is you can feel sad, you can feel down, you can feel depressed, but then you see the line. It's I might lose my life. My life has meaning now.
Yeah. Whenever you think it couldn't get any worse, it's all right, I can finally see what would worse look like. No, it's so true. And I think actually, Brian, something you just kind of touched on, social media, it's hard. And I mean, let's say in a professional setting, LinkedIn is social media. It can be really tough when you're working really hard, you're applying for all these jobs, you go in for an interview, it's your dream job, you get rejected, you feel bad about it. Oh, I had the referral. Oh, I thought I gave the right answer. Oh, this is their feedback. How could I have ever known that? It could be very frustrating. Then you see other people getting the jobs you want.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people, maybe their natural inclination is to be jealous or envious, but I really tried to look at that as a positive thing. When I saw my friends getting a job, I said, wow, first off, I like you and I want you to be happy, and this is going to make you happy. Second off, I'm going to take this as a sign that people like me are getting hired to the jobs that I want. And I want to be in an environment where people like me are getting hired to the jobs I want, because I'm people like me. So I really, every time I saw that, I was like, this is a positive sign. This is like, I don't know if you guys ever saw the movie WALL-E, but it's like, they go to the planet, there's no plants. I'm like, wow, that's one blade of grass sticking out. Each time I saw somebody getting hired, I'm like, I want it to be me too. I don't want it to be me instead of you. I want it to be both of us at the same time.
All of us. Yeah.
But I would rather you get a job than neither of us get a job, because I know we're both, having a rough time. So each time I saw somebody getting a job, I was like, this is a blade of grass. The jobs I want are out there. It's not dire.
See, that's rare. What you just said there.
There's something.
What you just said there, that's rare to have that perspective of, okay, I'm excited for Billy. I'm excited for Sarah. But it's like, then you're really like, well, I'm not excited. But it sounds like you really were. And if that's authentic, I think that's very powerful, because then I think you could break through a lot of energetic stuff to really get where you want to be ultimately.
Yeah. And, I think that kind of energy, really, it shines through in job interviews. And, this is kind of like some hard feedback that I have to just be honest with myself about is, when someone's out of work for a while, there's this, stereotype about them or not stereotype, but judgment about them. But I kind of experienced that, interviewing for a job. I interviewed for a job that I was really, really excited about. I was really happy about it. I thought it went well. I ended up getting rejected. The feedback, after I got the feedback, I had to be honest with myself and say, that's fair feedback. And I kind of thought it kind of was because I was out of work for so long. Not that they were judgmental about it, but my head was out of the game. I wasn't able to talk the talk and walk the walk as much as somebody, needed to be. And, I'm interested in jobs that are at a pretty, mid to senior level position. So it's fair to expect to be, on top of their game, technology processes. Somebody who's been out of work for, 6 months, 7 months, it's kind of fair that they would have to take a step back and kind of get their hands dirty again and almost work their way back up. And I don't think that was them being judgmental. I would probably, honestly, unfortunately, make the same decision if I was in their shoes. I look back at the answers I was giving, and again, now that I've been back in the workforce for a few months, I think back to that interview and I say, oh man, if I interviewed for that job today, I would say this and this and this. And I totally get why I wasn't answering the way that they were looking for. And that's a hard truth. You got to be honest with yourself. That's a hard truth.
So you got that insight from all of that.
Right. Yeah. And it was fair. It was definitely fair. The first thing I did was say, hey, you know what? Thanks for the feedback.
Yeah.
My
at
friend
least you
actually
got
would be a really
feedback.
good person for that job. So I referred one of my friends for that job instead. I say, the feedback that you're looking for, talk to this guy.
Because the thing is, usually, and just in my experience and a lot of other people's experience, you get no feedback. You'll say, oh, how did I do? Or why did I not make it past the final round? And a lot of companies will say, oh, legally, we can't, tell you the reason, or we don't want to get sued, da-da-da-da-da. But, when you can actually get that honest feedback that you got, it's golden, because then you could actually look at yourself in the mirror and say, do I have this trait? Am I acting a certain way? Am I talking a certain way? Is there something that needs to be fixed for me to get to that next level?
Right. It gives you an idea of what you could work towards in your next position. What, how can you hone those skills? But also I do have to say, kind of as a caveat to that, as a recruiter, I've given, negative interview feedback to people. I've had some people freak out on me. I've had some people react very poorly. I actually have had some great conversations with people that are gracious for that feedback. And, just like we talked about, they'll use it to improve their career going forward. But I do think that sometimes a company can make a policy not to give interview feedback, almost to protect the company. If you don't give interview feedback, you can't no one's going to freak out on the recruiters about what they're saying. It puts them in an uncomfortable position too, because it's almost like a little bit of a game of telephone. The hiring manager says this, then you tell them this, but it's misinterpreted, or they disagree and they want to refute it, or oftentimes they might bring like a protected status or equal employment bias into the equation, and maybe it's a founded complaint, or maybe there's no way to prove it. And so I think sometimes companies say no interview feedback just as a way to protect the company itself. And it's kind of like, there's pros and cons to it, but I do appreciate it. When I can get feedback, even when it's hard to hear, it's like that is what I really appreciate and value.
And even, for the show, me and Kev, we love feedback. We love, people telling us, oh, okay, this went like that, or maybe, you could have done this a little bit different, but, all in a positive light, not saying, not like a jab or anything like that, but just, positive reinforcement. And I think it's really important that all of us, share that kind of stuff with each other, because it's not shared enough. I think a lot of emotions are just stomped out because you feel like you have to be this certain person, but you are who you are ultimately.
Yeah, definitely. And I think sometimes too, I think about that saying, keep your friends close and your enemies closer. And a lot of times, I mean, that's kind of interpreted in my mind as like, your friends they don't want to hurt your feelings. They're going to tell you what you want to hear, but your enemies they're going to tell you what you need to know. They're going to say, Brian, these are all the reasons why you're a terrible person. These are all the reasons why you are terrible at making a podcast. And then you say, oh, okay, so the audio needs to be better. The video needs to be better. Got it. Thank you. And then you could use that to, do better. But like your friends would say, oh, everything is perfect. Just keep doing what you're doing. They might, not give you what you need to take it to the next level.
Yeah.
I think in life, it always comes down to how you choose to react. Like, you can't necessarily control the situation you're in, but you can choose how you react to it, your attitude, and your actions, how you're going to respond, how you're going to attempt to change that situation.
Yeah, absolutely.
And like for me, I think the story of Job in the Bible, that's one of the most significant stories, because storms, they don't last forever, and a lot of times the blessing is on the other side of the storm. But sometimes you have to go through the storm to really appreciate the blessing to come. So you went through a terrible turbulent period in your life, but I definitely think things are going to turn around and continue to turn around in a major way.
Yeah, I hope so. I think so, and hope so. And things are definitely stabilized. Like I actually feel very positive about the direction things are going. I feel like I'm kind of out of that storm of like, just get through the day. Just don't worry about what happens next month. Just I can actually think about, okay, well, if things keep going on this direction, what am I going to do next month, the following month? Oh, that seems kind of cool. I don't mind that. That kind of looks nice. So, I think, and that's really nice. I mean, being back to work is nice. I do like working for Microsoft. The agency I work through is pretty cool too. So I'm really thankful for this, and it's like, I guess kind of like, with Book of Job, it's like stuff that maybe, I'm trying to think how to even say it, like, just what really matters, like the core. And I think, I'm not 100% familiar. I think it's like his faith was being tested, all of these, sort of worldly things that, maybe were part of his life and his identity were stripped away. And, how did he maintain his faith?
Yeah.
I kind of feel like I relate to that in many ways, where it's like, okay, well, I used to work for the video game company and my name is in the credits and I get to brag about that. Now I can't even like afford to play the games. So what matters, and it's like, really what matters is driving around the neighborhood with my son, cutting up an orange and, showing him what the seeds look like.
Yeah,
that really matters. Not, who cares about the video games, and, I'll play it when I play it. No, no big deal.
It's still going to be there.
Things that are better my time now.
Yeah, and there also seems to be like incredible beauty and simplicity as well. Like a lot of times we attach our identity to all this complex stuff, jobs, relationships, but when it boils down to it, like life is really not nearly as complex as we make it. You know, as long as your body can survive, as long as your mental state is good, then really, what else do you really need? We choose to attach ourselves to these things, and we end up getting disappointed when it doesn't necessarily pan out how we want it to. But we don't necessarily need those things.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And I think I'm kind of lucky that my mind sort of operates in this programmatic way, where even I'll just say, kind of talking about parenting. I've got, let's say I'm single dad. I got a 1.5-year-old. What do I do? What am I supposed to do with this? Kind of boiling down, what are the absolute core necessities with raising a child? Okay, I've got to keep him fed, clothed, entertained.
Right.
If he's crying, it could really only be a couple different things. Either he's bored, he's has a dirty diaper, he's hungry, thirsty. Okay, so it's really only a couple different things to do, and it kind of becomes simple. He's crying, check his diaper. If it's dirty, change it. Just don't think about it.
Yeah.
Just do it.
Right,
if
just do it.
if his diaper is clean, try giving him food. And if he doesn't want to eat, play a game, take out some toy monster trucks. It's like,
Yeah, right.
It's not rocket science. And I'm very lucky. I mean, I feel like he's like a dream to take care of. Like he's very, very, I couldn't ask for like a better child to be, going through this whole thing with. But yeah, I mean, I think sometimes like when you bring the ego into play, especially when social media messaging comes into the factor, it's just, you got to go to the museum. You got to take them to, like, if you don't take them out to McDonald's, you're a terrible parent. And it's like, no, that's not a need. That's a option. And if you can, go to the, I had like a membership to the botanical garden I bought last year. We just keep going back to the botanical garden, and he likes it, hey, whatever. He's having fun with it. So, it's entertainment. Just keep doing that. I don't know. I mean, I think there's ways to kind of.
Okay, yeah, I think. Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, there we go. Yeah, something I was watching a YouTube video on, like, special forces. I can't remember if it was the Navy SEALs or like Delta Force, but they like, how did you get through the training? And essentially he was like, I'll quit tomorrow. So like every day I'll quit tomorrow. So it's kind of like you're
Yeah.
tricking your mind to keep going. And it's amazing like how severe of the storms you can get through just as long as you almost trick your mind. Like you just choose to think about life in a certain way. That's what really can help you keep pushing forward in these immense difficult times. And I think another thing in life is like life is just a series of transitions. Like okay, you have this bad period, it's not going to last forever. Eventually it's going to transition to something else, and if you could just hold on, you could just keep pushing one more day, then you'll eventually make it through that storm.
Because if you take that step back, and you look at your life, you realize, okay, there is a silver lining in there if I could just see it, if I had the wisdom to see it,
Right. No, definitely. And, that's so true. I mean, and I kind of apply the same thing with running, with everything. Is like, can I take one more step? Is it possible that I could take one step and then things can improve? So if I quit now, I remove myself
Never
from the
know.
opportunity to take that next step. So if I can take, let's say there's 100 miles left in the race, I don't need to worry about 100 miles. I just need to worry about the next step, the next 100 steps, the next mile. Worry about 100 miles later. That's like 2 days from now. A lot can change in 2 days. So yeah, I mean, and actually, what's kind of interesting is a lot of people will post like videos on YouTube about that race that I ran, and I watched one that was from a guy who was like a Navy SEAL, and he said that this race was as hard as Hell Week, and if it was raining, it would have been harder than Hell Week. And the year I ran it, rained. So maybe I should go be a Navy SEAL. I don't know. Maybe that's not my flavor, but it was kind of like, okay, so this is like a really hard thing. Okay.
Yeah.
You get like imposter syndrome sometimes, where it's like, well, if I could do it, how hard can it really be? But I don't know.
That's amazing you got through that.
Hey man, it's always a pleasure to have you on, man. We're at the top of the hour. We definitely going to have to bring you back, and we definitely appreciate that story, man. I'm glad you're back on track. Things are going well. But before we get out of here, did you want to leave our audience with any closing thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, really just, focus on the mindset. I mean, that's the biggest thing, is just focus on the mindset. Tomorrow things can get better. Things can happen in unexpected ways that you could never foresee. I mean, like every time, someone wins the lottery, so just whatever challenge you're facing, just keep your head in the game, just keep moving forward, and give yourself the opportunity to have something good happen, whether it's out of your control or within your control. Just be disciplined and give yourself that opportunity.
Absolutely.